Could Trump's tariff policies harm the American economy? That is the question we are going to explore today. Welcome back to Liberty's Hill, where we explore the question, how can we create a world of human flourishing with liberty, justice, dignity, and prosperity? I'm Dr. Bill Brannan, a pastor at Life Springs Church in Liberty Hill, Texas. When it comes to the economy, I believe Donald Trump has many plans that will significantly improve the economy. I love his plan to lower the corporate tax rate, decrease government spending, deregulate, and shrink the size of government. All of these ideas will significantly grow the wealth of America and lead to a higher standard of living. I also love many of the people he has chosen to be a part of his administration. His plan to increase tariffs, however, concerns me. Some people I talk to believe it is just a negotiating tactic. I hope they are right. Many people believe that Trump's tariff policies will help grow the economy and bring businesses back to America. The problem is that economics and history suggests otherwise. These tariff policies and the implications of them are going to be the subject of my next 3 videos. The first 2 will look at what Thomas Sowell has written in Basic Economics about tariffs, and the last video will wrestle with the implication of tariff policy with regard to national identity and values. I personally believe that America can completely reform American government to serve the interests of people, and have argued that studying Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics is a great place to start a grassroots movement to make America great again. One of the reasons Trump's tariff policies concern me is because economists demonstrate that the severity and duration of the Great Depression was likely the result of Trump-style tariff policies. Sowell writes, while the stock market crash of October 1929 and the ensuing Great Depression of the 1930s have often been seen as examples of the failure of market capitalism, it is by no means certain that the stock market crash made mass unemployment inevitable. Nor does history show better results when the government decides to do something compared to what happens when the government does nothing. Although unemployment rose in the wake of the record-setting stock market crash of 1929, the unemployment rate peaked at 9% 2 months after the crash, and then began a trend generally downward, falling to 6.3% in June 1930. Unemployment never reached 10% for any of the 12 months following the stock market crash of 1929. But after a series of major and unprecedented government interventions, the unemployment rate soared to over 20% for 35 consecutive months. These interventions began under President Herbert Hoover, featuring the Smoot-Hawley tariffs of 1930, the highest tariffs in well over a century, designed to reduce imports so that more American-made products would be sold, therefore providing more employment for American workers. It was a plausible belief, as so many things done by politicians seem plausible. But a public statement signed by 1,000 economists at leading universities around the country warned against these tariffs, saying that the Smoot-Hawley bill would not only fail to reduce unemployment, but would be counterproductive. None of this, however, dissuaded Congress from passing this legislation or dissuaded President Hoover from signing it into law in June 1930. Within 5 months, the unemployment rate reversed its decline and rose to double digits for the first time in the 1930s, and it never fell below that level for any month during the entire remainder of that decade, as one massive government intervention after another proved to be either futile or counterproductive. What of the track record when the government refused to do something to counter a downturn in the economy? Since the massive federal intervention under President Hoover was unprecedented, the whole period between the nation's founding in 1776 and the 1929 stock market crash was essentially a do-nothing era as far as federal intervention to counter a downturn. No downturn during that long era was as catastrophic as the Great Depression of the 1930s became after massive government intervention under both the Hoover administration and the Roosevelt administration that followed. Yet there was a downturn in the economy in 1929 that was initially more severe than the downturn in the 12 months immediately following the stock market crash of October 1929. Unemployment in the first year of President Warren G. Harding's administration was 11.7%. Yet Harding did nothing, except reduce government spending as tax revenues declined, the very opposite of what would later be advocated by Keynesian economists. The following year, unemployment fell to 6.7%, and the year after that to 2.4%. Even after it became a political axiom following the Great Depression of the 1930s that the government had to do something to intervene when the economy turned down, that axiom was ignored by President Ronald Reagan when the stock market crashed in 1987, breaking the record for a one-day decline that had been set back in 1929. Despite outraged media reaction at his failure to act, President Reagan let the economy recover on its own. The net result was an economy that, in fact, recovered on its own, followed by what the economists later called 20 years of an enviable combination of steady growth and low inflation. While the overall point is the difference in economic recovery between free markets and government intervention, the relevant point is the negative effect of the 1930s tariff policies influencing the Great Depression and the fact that tariffs are a form of government intervention in the economy. Tariffs always limit competition and lead to greater consumer costs due to the lack of competition. The negative effects on the economy as a whole are greater than the benefit to the targeted industries. What concerned me the most about Trump was when he implied in his interview with Joe Rogan that he would like to get rid of income tax and replace it with tariffs. That puts the government dependent on tariffs and could lead to economic disaster. The very nature of tariffs, especially when the government is totally dependent on them, makes the government dependent on imported goods, not domestic manufacturing. According to economics and history, costs will go up with such tariffs. The standard of living and wealth of the nation will decrease, and the expected revenues from tariffs will end up being significantly less than projected. Even worse, unemployment will likely skyrocket. I'm thrilled that Trump won the election, and I voted for him. I believe he cares deeply about America, the economy, and for people. I believe he is a great leader. I love almost all of his plans and policies, as well as many of his values. I love that he is unifying all types of people from different backgrounds and is surrounding himself with very amazing people. I truly support the commitment to free speech. Yet I believe his well-intentioned tariff policies could bring economic disaster. I hope that he will get advice from good economists before pursuing his tariff policies. What we really need, however, is for the American people to make the government work for our best interest. I personally believe it is time that the American people take responsibility to educate ourselves on the principles that lead to liberty and human flourishing. We cannot place the blame on leaders being uneducated if we refuse to be educated ourselves. At this point, so many people believe that tariffs will bring manufacturing back to America and create a better economy that we make it hard for politicians to implement any other policy. We almost make it political suicide. Maybe if we, the people, change what we demand, we will have a government that creates liberty and human flourishing. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and please subscribe to my channel.